People who are homeschooling their kids and who are willing to move offshore increasingly find that difficult. Especially if you're coming from the US and to a certain extent Canada, you might face a lot of difficulties if you want to move offshore and continue homeschooling your kids, given that many countries do not allow it and they're specifically forbid homeschooling your kids. So in today's video, we're going to talk about which options do you have, which countries do allow to homeschool your kids, and how you can get a residency in those countries. Hello, I'm Jovana, Director of Business Development here at Nomad Capitalist, where we help 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs and their families go where they are treated the best. And for many of those, that is finding a place where they can homeschool their kids. So especially if you are coming from the United States, you know that is very common. United States is a country that has by far the highest number of kids that are homeschooled. So if you are looking to move offshore and continue homeschooling your kids, you are facing a lot of difficulties finding a place where you are going to settle or multiple places that will allow for you to continue homeschooling your kids. So many countries do have a very strict regulation about homeschooling, and they're very strictly forbidding for parents to homeschool their kids. Certain countries do have exemptions from religious reasons, or they are allowing homeschooling in cases of some severe disease where a kid cannot go physically to school, and those are the only exemptions. But luckily, there are a lot of countries in the world that do allow homeschooling, and that where homeschooling is becoming more and more popular. As I said, US by far the number one in terms of the numbers of homeschool kids, but that number is increasingly growing in other parts of the world. Countries in Latin America are generally very liberal towards homeschooling, though it is not that common. So almost all of the countries of Latin America have certain provisions in their law or even in their constitution that allows parents to homeschool their kids. As I said, that is not very common, but in the recent couple of years, especially during pandemic and in the period after pandemic, and with the increased number of expats, numbers of kids homeschool in those countries and opportunities that those kids later have is increasing. So one of the countries for homeschooling is Belize. So though to citizens of Belize, homeschooling is not allowed, meaning that kids that are born as a citizen, it is mandatory to go to public elementary school or private elementary school, but the school that is a part of a certain curriculum. For expats, homeschooling is allowed. One of the requirements in order to homeschool your kids is for a parent's tutor to hold an academic qualification that is generally required in schools in Belize. Chile, also one of the countries where homeschooling is illegal. There are certain verification tests that a parent needs to pass, and basically to prove a degree, to share a curriculum, what is kid going to learn in the next period. There are significant number compared to the Chilean population of kids that are being homeschooled. Again, as I said, now increased. So Chile is becoming more and more liberal in this way again, but there are certain restrictions or requirements that a parent needs to demonstrate. It is called a verification process, and during this process, a parent that is tutor either needs to show a certain academic degree or pass basically a test that will, in regular circumstances, allow them to become a teacher in Chile. Uruguay is also one of the countries in Latin America where homeschooling is allowed. Brazil, actually, the Brazilian Supreme Court deemed homeschooling as a constitutional right, but that still needs to go into legislative procedure. Again, many cities have implemented homeschooling opportunities and also implemented legislation around it. So situation in Brazil towards homeschooling is drastically improving. Some of the very popular destinations for expats, Costa Rica, unfortunately does not allow homeschooling. But one of the countries, that whole region, Caribbean region, that does allow homeschooling and has the best infrastructure for that is Bahamas. Bahamas is one of the best places to homeschool, a place that has a very liberal rules around homeschooling and where use of tutor together with a parent practitioner is allowed. So basically, Bahamas homeschool rules say that you can homeschool whether as a parent or as a tutor as long as the kid has 25 hours of effective work every single week and for at least 36 weeks. Bahamas also allows in this 25 hours per week, such as field trips and different social interaction activities. So you are free that in those 25 hours, you can take your kids to nature or to different play fields, and that will still count as homeschooling in those 25 hours that are mandatory per week. Kids that are homeschooled in Bahamas have the right to participate in national tournaments or different competitions, obviously in their age group. Compared to Latin America, most of Asian countries are way more restrictive when it comes to homeschooling, and homeschooling is not that popular there. So most of the countries do strictly forbid homeschooling in a way that public or private schools that are part of certain curriculum are mandatory to attend. So kids cannot be homeschooled. One of the countries in Asia that allows homeschooling your kids is Indonesia, and that is becoming really a trend in upper classes and with expats. So kids are being more and more homeschooled. Indonesia does impose some of the regulation around homeschooling, where you basically need to get an approval from ministry to homeschool your kids. That can be for different reasons. Obviously, the strongest reasons are, health and religious reasons, but they are now issuing basically because you don't like the curriculum that is taught in Indonesia and you do want to continue homeschool your kids. Again, for expats, it's way easier than for a domestic population. Their manual asks homeschool kids to take certain tests just to verify the levels in which their knowledge is and make sure that it is appropriate for their age group. Though those rules do exist, those are really not strictly implemented and enforcement on those does not exist. One thing to be aware if you want to homeschool your kids in Indonesia is that high school diploma is not automatically granted. So kids will need to go through certain testing in order to get it. So basically, signing into college might be difficult after you finish homeschooling in Indonesia. United Arab Emirates also one of the places that allows homeschooling for expats. So kids of citizens of UAE and kids that are citizens in UAE are not allowed to be homeschooled, so they need to attend regular schools. However, for expats, that is allowed. You can choose between homeschooling your kid or doing online sessions with a tutor that is abroad, whatever works for you, and they're really flexible in this regard. Given that there is a lot of people or expats who choose to homeschool their kids in UAE, transfer from homeschooling into universities or to high school is very easy. So your kid will basically need a proof that they attended, they were homeschooled for at least 2 years in order to enroll further. So this really gives an opportunity in later on to enroll to universities. Again, not many countries do allow it. So this is definitely one of the benefits there. Singapore is also one of the countries that allows homeschooling, but really only a small number of parents choose to homeschool their kids, given that compulsory education in Singapore is performed in English, and it's a very good one. So in order to homeschool your kids, you will need to get basically like a license permit from the ministry. So you will need to provide reasons why you want to homeschool your kids and basically the curriculum in which you are going to do that. And under those conditions, a kind of homeschooling permit can be granted. So by providing a homeschooled curriculum to the ministry, you will also need to demonstrate that curriculum will facilitate that your kid later on, conduct economical activity, as they're saying, which is the main goal of their compulsory educational system. So those two kind of need to be matched, but still granting a whole homeschool permit is not that difficult. Obviously, the curriculum will need to be kind of per authorities' liking. Lots of European Union countries do allow homeschooling, but unfortunately, they do have a lot of rules and regulations about that. So usually, first of all, they want to know the reasons why you want to homeschool your kid, and they might grant a permit. Some countries might not even allow that, but some might grant a permit only in one of two cases, either for religious reasons or, unfortunately, in cases of a disease where your kid is physically prevented to visit a school. So again, most of the countries will allow exemptions in those cases, and they will require you to write a reason why you are asking for your kids to be homeschooled. So even those that do accept not liking a whole school curriculum as a reason might have certain rules and regulations around what are the things that are mandatory to teach your kids. Obviously, in certain cases, that might even be the language in which you need to teach. So European Union rules really need to be carefully examined and determined on a case-to-case basis which one would be the best for you. Germany is one of the places that people think it is very good for homeschooling. Unfortunately, in the last couple of years, there have been a lot of cases where kids and families that did decide to homeschool their kids for religious reasons were not very well accepted into a society. They were ostracized, and in many cases, those people moved to United States in order to be able to homeschool their kids. Netherlands is one of better places to homeschool your kid if you wish to move to European Union. Obviously, it has its own pros and cons, but it is relatively liberal towards homeschooling compared to some other EU places. If you're intensively thinking about moving abroad and homeschooling your kids, and you're not certain which countries would be the best option for you and your kids, and obviously how will that impact other aspects of your lives, such as finance, your business, your tax bill, Nomad Capitalist team can help you put all of those pieces together.